Okay, yeah, again, my name's Alan Fiorello. Just a little background about myself, too. Before I joined UVA, I had a 24-year career in the United States Air Force. 4 of those were spent fixing jets, which was real fun. And then the other majority of time was in cyber operations. I finished off my degree or a stint with the Air Force as an ROTC commander at the University of Pittsburgh. So that was kind of my foot into higher learning, higher education. So I just got lucky. It was the right person at the right time. UVA was looking for somebody that had some academic background, that understood the military and the veteran community, and hey, that was me. So what I'm going to present to you a little bit today on Decision Making 101, and I want to stress 101. So this is the basics, okay? But I'm going to really kind of try to formulate on some of the ways we construct decision making in our minds. Some a little bit about some of the chemistry that goes behind it, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of an Air Force feel on how we make decisions in an operational environment. So you can maybe take that, synthesize it to your own needs, and then we'll talk through this. And there's a couple videos in here which I think will bring us some good examples that we could use. So again, the first piece we're going to talk about decision shapers, makers, and then the quality of decisions. What goes into this? Some biochemistry of decision making. I'm going to introduce you to this concept called the decision ramp. And this is how decisions are kind of formulated. And then the operational piece is I'm going to introduce you to the OODA loop. Who's heard of the OODA loop before? Okay, good. So we're going to give you a little example of how that works. All right, so decision making exercise. Who didn't make a decision this morning? Okay, good. I'm glad you're here. Okay, yeah, that's right. So really, we all make decisions, whether we knowingly or consciously or subconsciously make them. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a quick little exercise, a little audience participation thing. It's real easy. I'm going to give you 2 choices. Okay, y'all just pick one. Okay, red or green?
Red.
Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Chick-fil-A or Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Chick-fil-A.
Let's see. UVA or VT?
Virginia Tech.
All right. You're a plant, aren't you? Yeah, okay. All right. Well, see, so those were kind of things there that, we didn't even think about these things for the most part. They just come up, we make them in seconds, but there's so much things happening behind, our eyes that are going on. We speak at a rate of about 150 to 120 words a second, but we're thinking 10 times as fast, to make those things, to make those words come out of our mouth. So let's talk about decision makers and decision shapers. Okay, so here's kind of a photo of our cabinet, for the head office, the free world decisions making, in the situation room, right? So we have individuals in there that have different roles. Who's the decision maker in that picture? Can you all see that one?
Who should be or who is?
Who is? Who is? Who is?
The head of the table.
Okay, so what? So I heard head of the table. Who else? Did someone say everybody?
The president.
The president, right? Yeah.
Usually it's the guy at the head of the table.
Use the guy. Okay.
Or the final decision.
Okay.
Yeah, the final
Well, good.
decision.
That's exactly the point I was going.
Yeah.
So the final decision will come from the person at the head of the table, but everybody will also be making decisions. But for the most part, if you're not sitting at the head of the table, you're a decision shaper. Most of us are decision shapers. So we'll be shaping that decision that maker ultimately makes. So the takeaway here is that every single one of us, as well as being a decision maker, is a decision shaper at some level or another. Okay, so the quality of decision. So not all decisions are created equal. I would say that to most decisions, when we're talking about quality, there's 3 aspects to them. Good, fast, and cheap, all right? You pick any 2. So if you want a good and fast decision, it's not going to be cheap. If you want a fast and cheap decision, it's probably not going to be good, all right? If you want a cheap and good decision, it's probably not going to be fast, okay? Now, the goal of good decision shapers is really to try to find that balance where they can get all 3 of those things to kind of work and find out what the trade-offs are. So from decisions, we get outcomes. things we expect to happen, which are nice, and usually there's some unexpected outcomes to our decision making. So I would say these are the effects of our decisions. You have your primary effect, you have secondary and tertiary, these are third level effects. So when you're working through building or shaping those decisions, you want your decisions to make, you think about what do I expect, what can I not expect, or hope that doesn't happen, and what are the other things that are going to happen as a result of my primary decision. All right, so another example, road trip. Who's gone on a road trip? All right, just about everyone, great. Okay, who's gone on a road trip with a bunch of children in the back of their vehicle? Okay, all right. So did you ever stop and get food on your way?
Fast and cheap.
Yeah, right? Fast and cheap, right? Very good. Very good. Doesn't have to be good. Excellent, right? So let's, since you have a lot of experience with it, let's work with you then.
Please.
Okay, so you're driving down the road, and I think you've mentioned you like Chick-fil-A,
Yes.
right? Gone through, so you're figuring you got to get from point A to point B. It's an 8-hour drive. It's lunchtime. I'm stopping to get Chick-fil-A. Everybody in the back of minivan? Okay. They're hungry, all right? And they're cranky and they're noisy. So, but you have no time, so you're going to go through the drive-through, okay? What always happens, not always, but most of the time, sometimes through the drive-through, right? All right. You order something, and then you don't always get what you order. Especially we have a bunch of hungry mouths. You just want to get there and back on the road again. So 5 miles onto the highway again, start digging through, and they got your spicy chicken sandwich confused with a grilled chicken sandwich.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's not what you do. So you order the spicy, you got the grilled,
Okay.
unexpected outcome. What's your choice? What are your choices now?
Either turn around and go back, or just, shrug the shoulders and keep on.
That's right, okay. So that's so that would be, just really simple decision making. You have to come up there, Am I going to eat this grilled chicken sandwich? It's not going to kill me. It's probably pretty good, healthier for me. But man, I really wanted that spicy chicken sandwich, unintended. So you go, all right, unexpected, secondary outcome, yeah, it tastes good, but it's going to be filling, and I'm just going to keep on going. So again, just some simple decisions making processes that we go through every day, and we figure out, what are the unexpected consequences, how to deal with them afterwards. All right. So second thing we need to talk about, too, is the biochemistry, what's going on in your brain at the time you're making decisions. So here's a great little video from a Stanford Business School professor on his topic. His name is Baba Shiv. Is really short, and Baba will give you a bunch of information real quick. Just try to absorb as best you can, because we're going to talk about it afterwards, all right?
Most of our decisions, whether we like it or not, most of our actions, most of our behavior, most of our experiences are constantly being shaped at the instinctual level. I would argue that about 90 to 95% of our decisions, even important decisions, you might think that you're being rational, but keep in mind that if you pit the rational brain against the emotional brain, in general, it is the emotional brain that is going to win out. In fact, I have this quote out there which says that the rational brain it's not good at being rational. What it is good at is simply rationalize what the emotional brain has already decided to do. And therefore, it behooves us to understand the workings of the instinctual, the emotional brain. Neuromodulators like serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, etc., have a significant impact on who we are, even, for example, who we are in the morning compared to who we are in the afternoon. And that has a huge significance in terms of the nature of the decisions that we make in the morning versus in the afternoon. The answer to this question is that in general, it is far better off scheduling your decision making in the morning, because that's when the natural levels of serotonin, the natural levels of dopamine. Serotonin is the calming chemical, dopamine is the excitatory chemical. Serotonin levels are going to be normal, because when you wake up in the morning, serotonin levels are going to be high. As a result of which, you can start taking chances, you're less risk averse. Whereas what happens as the day begins to progress is that there's a natural decline in the level of serotonin, as a result of which, when you're making decisions in the afternoon, you will tend to be more risk averse. And therefore, there'll be a tendency to gravitate towards what we call the status quo, the classic status quo bias. And the status quo bias will manifest in the form of an indecision. And that's why you'll see that very often when you're making decisions, important decisions, especially late in the afternoon, very often you end up postponing those decisions, because you like to stick to the status quo. Sleep is extremely critical. Why? Because there's one phase of sleep called deep sleep or slow wave sleep, and this is where our natural levels of serotonin, dopamine, etc. come back to normal. And therefore, if you don't get good quality sleep, what I mean by that is good quality deep sleep or slow wave sleep, you're likely to end up waking up in the morning with lower levels of serotonin, as a result of which you're more likely to be in a type 1 mindset, fearful, more likely to make decisions out of fear, more likely to be risk averse, etc. Previously, people thought that what fitness does is it releases endorphins in the brain, because we all feel good after a workout. Turns out it is really not endorphins. Turns out that there's actually a precursor to serotonin that is released when you are going through a fitness workout. And therefore, it's nature's way to keep our levels of serotonin and dopamine high during the day. I always advise people to have a high protein breakfast, good quality protein. It could be a whey protein, it could be egg protein, egg white, for example. Why? Because as the day begins to progress, right, you had your breakfast like at 7 o'clock in the morning, as the day begins to progress, all these other amino acids are getting absorbed past the blood-brain barrier. One of the last ones to be released and get absorbed is tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin. So which means that if you had a high-quality protein breakfast in the morning, by the time you're hitting about 11:30, when you're going to expect a down, is when you're going to get a serotonin boost, and therefore you're as effective making decisions in the middle of the day as you are in the morning.
All right, so mornings versus afternoons. So first takeaway, when is it better to make tougher decisions?
Mornings.
Okay, how come?
Serotonin levels are
Oh, you guys are paying attention, good. All right, working for that A, excellent.
in the morning now.
Yeah. So this is why we have, the morning blend and not the afternoon blend, because no one could. You couldn't make a decision where to come here. All right. So good night's sleep, really important, right? Okay, who had a good night's sleep last night? Okay, all right, so we've got some key decisions for you all to do shortly after the meeting. So, yeah, so super. I mean, a lot of this is common sense, but now we have some of the science and the chemistry behind that, well, why it is, not that, more common than it is. Anyway, exercise, this is really good too. So, why is exercise important? That's right, so it keeps that chemistry kind of going into your brain further on during the day, so you can increase your decision-making capacities, make better decisions throughout the day. But after lunch, just take a nap. It's over. That's right. Yeah.
Have naps come into play in this research at all?
Not that I know of, but I mean, you take a look at Europe and South America. Siestas play a really big role in it, right? So I don't know. Anybody Seinfeld fans over here?
Yeah.
You remember George? He built a little sleeping place underneath the desk, So, right. All right, and then breakfast, okay? So, not much protein here. What's going on, man? All right. So again, having a good breakfast, some high proteins, especially, if you can't, you got to have your bagel and Cheerios every morning. That's great. But maybe those days that you got to make some important decisions, life decisions, get a good night's sleep, maybe some exercise the day before, and get an Egg McMuffin, all right? Baba Shiv talked about the two pieces of our brains, right? The emotional side and the rational side, all right? So for the purpose of our discussions, we're going to call the emotional sides guts, okay? Kind of the instinctive, the things that kind of happen that we don't even think about happening. These are kind of making those kind of decisions. The other piece, the rational side, we'll call this facts. This is the fact-based side. We want to get as much information as possible as we need to make quality decisions. All right, so if you're a gut-making decision kind of person, all right, there's going to be a certain probability of your outcomes. You're going to be a high-risk kind of decision maker at this point. And risk, he talked a little bit about in the video about being risk-averse, you know, and staying status quo. This is not that kind of risk. This is the kind of risk that things will probably go bad because you're not thinking about things, okay, or making decisions properly. So the other piece is reward, okay? You want risk and you want reward. So again, if you're on the gut side, the emotional side, your probability of getting rewards from these decisions are not that great. Not saying they won't, but they're just not that good. Conversely, on the other side, the more facts you have, you will reduce your risk. You'll increase your chances of getting those rewards that you're looking for, the expected outcomes and not the unexpected outcomes. All right, so up here in the right-hand corner, I call the unicorn zone, okay? Because here, you've got all the facts you need, okay, and you're not using any emotions. But the problems with unicorns, right, they're not realistic, okay? So you will not be in that corner probably ever, okay? Now, the opposite, down over here, where it's all guts, I call that the honey badger zone, okay? Because the honey badger doesn't care. It's the most fierce animal out in the wilderness, okay? It eats snakes. It, attacks beehives for honey. It just doesn't care and it does whatever, okay? But in our example, this is all guts and no glory. Okay, this is, we can't operate down in that sphere anyway. So time, though, is going to be a factor in any sort of decision. Do we have the time to gather all the facts we need, to make good decisions, to counteract all the emotional side? So I call this whole thing the decision continuum because all these things are happening all at once, subconsciously and consciously. And what we're looking for, really, is some happy area over here. So as you're making decisions, moving from this continuum, from the all guts, get more and more facts, somewhere in here, 70, 80% of the facts you need to make a quality decision, you'll do. Because you don't have time to get all the information. So you're going to have to, you're going to have to make a gut call eventually. Okay, so this is enough I got. I just read an article yesterday. It was commenting on a 60 Minutes interview from a Delta operator from Special Forces. And his comment is that when they go in and do their operations, they're really happy with about 70% intelligence of what they're going to go in there. Because they don't have time and the things could change, before they can get perfect decisions. So they're going to rely on their training, their innovation, and their teamwork and, superior weaponry maybe to overcome that final 30%. Hopefully you can get a little bit better than 70, maybe 80%, but just the takeaways here is you're not going to have perfect decisions, and you're going to have to use your gut at some point. All right, but in reality, this is how we really work. With all that, okay, we're mostly guts. After all that decision ramping stuff, we're going to make most of our decisions based on our emotions, but that's okay. But now you know, all right, and that's what we want to do here. All right, so baggage and horizons. What sort of baggage are we going to bring to every sort of decision-making process that we bring to? Okay.
Past experience. Or
Past
conditions.
experience.
Upbringing.
Upbringing. What else?
Biases.
Biases. Very good. Okay, what else?
Comfort.
Comfort, okay. How about things like being afraid, right, of the outcomes, all right? How about arrogance, right? You can bring all these things, but these are, your upbringing, your past experience, all these things kind of fit into that. So again, not a inclusive list or not a complete list, but I think the biggest things you have to be aware of behind all your gut decisions you're going to make You're going to have your ego you have to deal with, biases, and fears. All right, so so you're going to take these with you, but pack lightly, all right? So you're not going to be able to get rid of them. But on the horizon, as you start going up your decision ramp and getting more and more facts, maybe you can change some of these things into some positive things, all right? So when you've got enough, maybe your ego will be able to deliver some sincere decisions. Okay, so now you're making decisions, there's some sincerity behind it because now you really understand why you're making these decisions. Biases, again, can get, with enough facts, they can be overcome with objectivity. Fear, confidence, all right? So you start removing some of these baggages that you're bringing with you with some of these facts that you can form from here. All right. So now getting the facts. Again, most of us how are we going to get most of our facts? Well, I mean, how are we going to make most of our decisions? Okay. All right. So we are this guy, okay, when we are making our decisions. All right, being May the 4th, I have to throw in some Star Wars stuff in here. That's right. So we are the Han Solos out there making decisions. On the other end of the spectrum, we're not C-3POs, but they're out there collecting facts and generating information that way. But how do we collect these facts? I would say you need to ask the right people the right questions, okay? So a lot of that will come with experience, and again, personal biases there too. But I think it's important that we kind of, get our facts from really good and credible sources. All right, subjective versus objective information. Who can tell me the difference between subjective and objective information? What's subjective?
I always think of, for some reason, I always think of judges on ice skating and gymnastics. They're saying like, oh, I like this or I don't like that. Whereas a sport with a goal, you get the ball in the goal and then that's just a fact.
Right. Yeah, ice skating, completely subjective, right? Now, there are some objective things to it, right? Some compulsory, things, time limit, but for the most part, very subjective because you're looking at the subject of the issue. The object is the ice skater. The way they perform is the subject. So when you're out there asking people the right questions, make sure they're asking questions about the object. Then at the end you go, well, now that I understand the object good, what's your opinion? That would be the subject, all right? So they're both valuable, but be able to differentiate between the both. Hey, the 5 whys. Okay, this is a classic. Who, what, when, where, and who, and how. Okay, there's a H snuck in there somehow. But there's also the why not. Okay, and that's even become more popular these days. Because again, you ask people questions. You say, hey, what do you think about this idea? At least in in the higher education world, depending on how you talk to you get no quite a bit. And so my response is back, well, why not? Okay, so puts other people having to defend their ideas. So you can understand, is it subjective or is there some objective facts behind why that no is being offered up? Okay, finally, check the sources. Okay, great. Wikipedia, I think is a great, is not a reliable source, but it's a good place to start. And then that could lead you to some maybe more objective conclusions. That are properly researched and documented. All right, so get the facts. All right, so some steps in decision shaping. Now this course is about decision making, all right? So we can spend actually a whole day talking about each one of these steps, but from a perspective here, I think the top thing is really developing options. There's always more than one way to get things done. In the military, we call that courses of action, but there's really options. So again, when you're trying to develop a decision for your decision maker, give that person some options and then maybe prioritize them. Which one, again, make your subjective conclusions. This is which I think is the best, but here are some other ways you can handle it. Estimate, cost estimates, time and money. Time equals money. The longer it takes, the more money it's going to cost you. But again, if you can pull some of these facts into your decision-making process, it'll really help making you have clear decisions. Develop metrics. Really, ultimately, Lisa and I have talked about this quite a bit. If you can't measure it, why are you doing it, right? So how are you going to be able to communicate to anybody, your worth, your relevance, if you can't measure the outcomes? Okay, moral, legal, and ethical. Boy, that's a big one, okay? Because you don't want to end up, on the paper, that, hey, we did this or we did that. So if you can't tell your mother that you're doing this, it's probably not moral, legal, or ethical, okay? Okay, again, consider secondary tertiary effects. That's a decision maker should always ask that. So, geez, boy, we make this decision, what else is going to be triggered because of that? Then finally, I think we talked a little about prioritize those courses of action. What's good about them, what's bad about them, and then make a recommendation. That should be your number one priority. All right, no other handout. So now let's talk about operationalizing the OODA loop. OODA loop is broken out into 4 discrete phases, but as we'll come to find out, they kind of happen really quickly, and you may get stuck in some areas here before making it. But the OODA loop was developed by Air Force Colonel John Boyd during the Korean War incident. So during the Korean Air War, the American Air Force had an incredible kill ratio, something like 15 to 17 to 1. So what Colonel Boyd kind of came up says, our jets are about the same, training is about equal. How are we, winning so much? Well, our pilots were making decisions faster than the other pilots were. And that's because of our style of training our officers to fly jets. And I would say, even in the military in general, we train our folks is to be a little bit more, quicker on their feet to overcome, make decisions faster. So we give them a framework, we train you, and then we expect to make decisions faster. But he was wondering, how did we make those decisions? So he broke it up into 4 pieces. First is the was up phase, all right? So you're using your 5 senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, looking, touching, everything so you can observe that area that you're going to be in. The orient piece is really, now you've seen it, you're sensing it, you want to make sense of it all, and you're going to ask yourselves what can and needs to be done. So this is when those decision shaping pieces come in. You're getting the facts, you're developing your COAs, time, metrics, morals, secondary, tertiary effects, all those things we talked about in decision shaping. Now in the world of fighter pilot, these things are happening very, very fast, okay? In the corporate environment, maybe take a little bit more time to figure these kind of things out. But all this is going to be metered by things that are our baggage, our ego, our bias, our fear. And we're going to be moving, as we're going to be moving up our decision ramp, we're going to get enough facts to make some sort of decision at some point. Then we're going to use some critical thinking, and like I said, it's not all going to be facts. You're going to be using your gut, at some point. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? What am I going to do about all this information that I've gathered and the environment I'm in? So some critical decision-making tools, Occam's razor, who's heard of that? Okay, Joe, thank you very much. Can you give us a quick rundown on that?
Well, as I understand it, often the simplest answer is the best.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, the simplest answers, keep it simple, okay? And then you have a bunch of courses of action. You're going to need to, select one. Maybe selecting the simplest course of action is the best. Do all this correctly. You're going to counteract all the baggages. You got a good horizon. And then you'll have to act. You'll have to do something. Are we done yet? No. We'll have to see what the outcomes and effects really are. So we're back in the observe mode at that point. Okay? All right. So let's talk about a little example. All right. Who's seen Top Gun? All right. That's good. Okay. All right. So here's the scenario. Here's an air-to-air engagement. They're into this school that is designed to train the best fighter pilots in the Navy. I know we talked about Air Force, but they use the same kind of stuff. Okay, so when it comes to air-to-air engagement, this piece, they're trained to have these two F-14s, which is the Navy standard air superior fighter at the time, the mid-'80s, fight against these two A-4s, which are very small, light, and limble aircraft. And they're meant to fly and operate in the same sort of taxis that our Soviet, at the time, counterparts would fly in. So this school was really designed to optimize the tactics and the strengths of this large aircraft with the weaknesses of that aircraft. So in this case, our hero, Tom Cruise, Maverick, is flying with his team, his backseater named Goose, and another F-14 crew, and these two are meeting the two, pretty much the two pilots that run the Top Gun school, the best pilots that are out there. And what I want you to kind of take a look at is we'll go through and you'll see little keys in there where they are in the decision loop making decisions during this engagement. Now, mind you, this is the cues here are going to be from Maverick's perspective, okay? So think about that, and then we'll talk about what we see afterwards.
Gentlemen, this is Hop 19. Multiple aircraft, multiple bogies. Your training is half over. The competition for the Top Gun trophy remains tight. First place, Iceman. Second place, Maverick. Just 2 points behind.
Here they are. 3 miles left, 10 o'clock. I don't think they see us yet.
Okay, I see them. 2 A4s, left 10 o'clock level, continue left turn.
Good morning, gentlemen. The temperature is 110 degrees. Holy shit! Viper! Viper's up here! Great! Oh, shit.
Great. He's probably saying, holy shit, Maverick and Goose.
Yeah, I'm sure he's saying that.
I've got my eye on the northern bogey.
Roger, I got the southern guy.
Hollywood, you've got the lead. I'll cover you.
Break now, Chester.
Hollywood, we're losing Viper. Let's just stay on Jester.
Roger, I'm on him.
Goose, find Viper. He's out there somewhere.
Stay with Hollywood, Mav. We're covering his wing.
Goose, there's Viper. 3 o'clock low.
Stay with Hollywood, Mav. We're his cover. Don't you leave me, Maverick.
Hollywood, you're looking good. I'm going after Viper.
Maverick. Mav, don't leave him.
Goose, Hollywood's okay. I want Viper. Stand by. Viper's coming down.
Head to head. I can't believe we're doing this.
Woo! Rock and roll! Here's our chance. It's a big one, Goose. Come on.
Come on, Mav. Keep coming.
Okay, Sidewinder missile selected. Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
Come around, come around. That's it, that's it.
Jesus, this guy's good. Goose, where's he going?
Come on, come on, come on. Keep coming, keep coming.
Come on, baby.
Damn, this gets good.
Still close for missiles, Goose. I'm switching to guns.
Come on, come on, come on.
Stick with it. Stick with it. Hold it. Goose, check our tail.
Bingo, Maverick's dead. You're out of there, kid.
Fast moving. All right, so let's talk about what we see. It happened really fast. Okay, hopefully we won't have to make decisions quite that fast in our day-to-day lives. But at what part of the loop was Maverick spending most of his time in? Orient, right? Yeah, so Orient, and then was he going directly to decide after that? Going back to observe, right? So he was going in there, and that's okay. You know, you don't have to make decisions because what he's doing every time he's observing, he's getting more and more facts, you know, so they can make the proper decision. Okay, what were some of the key decisions you saw in there?
Whether or not to stay, while the other teammate was saying stay there.
Right.
Or to go on offense.
That was the key decision, right? Because what was his expected outcome?
To kill Viper.
To kill Viper, right? What was the unexpected outcome? Yeah. Right. So he made one very bad decision. He did some great flying. You see all the decisions where he's switching from Sidewinder to guns. Sidewinder is a long-range missile. Well, it's a medium-range missile. But it doesn't have an effective range if you're really close. So he went really close. He made a decision, I want to go to guns so you can get closer in, at a better shot. But doing all that was it was a waste of time because he made a very bad decision, early on into it. All right.
He also thought that Hollywood could defeat Zester to allow him to fight Viper by himself, but that didn't happen. So there's another part of the equation that happened that he counted on the #1 pilot to be able to carry his side of the load.
Excellent transition.
He also spent so much time deciding to go to guns, it was a quick decision, but he stopped observing.
Right. And he never took a shot, did he? Right.
So he just made this decision and kept going with it, but all observation stopped.
Right. Observation stopped. And what do you think was maybe clouding some of those observations? What sort of baggage? Ego, right? Okay. Very good. Yeah. Right. Very good. Yeah. So that will get in front of you quite a bit for making very good decisions.
Alan, will you go over one more time? Will you tell us what each of the letters stands for in UDA?
Sure. So observe is the first O. That's your 5 senses. Orient is like, what am I going to do and what can I do? Decide, obviously, is to make that decision. And act is, act on it. Do something. All right. So outcomes, I think we talked about it. Didn't end well for Viper or for Maverick and Goose. But all these things kind of show how things, rapidly happen, in our day-to-day lives. And hopefully we can slow some things down for those real big, important life decisions, or go, no-go decisions on big things that have consequence. Yes, ma'am?
Well, and then because of this, now he has good baggage because he has an experience to draw from for something that could happen next.
Yeah. This was a big turning point in the movie, if you saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
You can take a
Right.
past learned lesson.
That's right. Excellent. Thanks for paying attention. Very good. All right. Well, that kind of concludes it. So, we talked about, again, the distinction between decision shapers, makers, the quality of decisions, good, fast, or cheap, pick any two. Some of the biochemistry, morning or afternoon, which is better? Morning. Okay. Exercise? Yes. Breakfast? Yes. What kind of breakfast? Protein. Okay. And then what was the last one? Sleep. Oh, man, it's my favorite. Okay, we talked about decision ramp, going up that decision ramp, get more facts. Ultimately, are you going to have enough time to have 100% facts? No unicorns in here, right? Okay, all right. But you don't want to be the honey badger either. We have not evolved to be honey badgers, all right? And then we talked a little bit lastly about the decision loop and how to operationalize it with the UDA construct. Any questions? All right, great. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Just one thing, first of all, great class. I really enjoyed it. So much information and content. So this is talking about an individual as they make the decisions, but I wonder if you can give like 1 or 2 points on decision making from a group perspective. I think that's one probably a difficulty we're all experiencing is we can make our decisions, but when you're trying to work decisions out on a group level, what would you say about that?
So let me give you my subjective opinion on that one. Where I see some of the decisions failing in industry and in academia, you name it, there really isn't a clear decision maker. Okay, everybody wants to shape it, but nobody says, hey, it's your responsibility. The decisions are going to rest on you, whatever you decide. No one wants to take that. They're averse. for all sorts of reasons. So I would say in a group environment, be really clear who's going to make the final decision, who's going to have responsibility for that outcome. All right. So what would be the bonus of that? I mean, why should you do that?
Develop leadership.
Right. It's really what leadership is all about, right? And what did you say back there?
Well, the risk and reward scale, you'll get the reward if it goes well.
That's right. That's right. I mean, that's yeah. And if it goes bad, then you have someone that's really accountable. So if someone's accountable, they're going to put more care into making sure that decision's good. If nobody's accountable, oh yeah, well, what the heck, So I would say that would be the biggest thing, and making sure, we talked about getting the facts, is asking the right people the right questions, right? So everybody has got an opinion out there. Well, that's wonderful, but you really want to get those people that are knowledgeable in that subject area that you're trying to make a decision on. So that would be picking the right people, and then making sure that the facts they're presenting you. Do a little bit of homework, especially if you don't know the people that well. Check some of their sources out. In academia, we get papers in, we grade them. If they're annotated, correctly, that's great. But we're going to check some of those sources to make sure that they're actually out there and there's no plagiarism and and people not trying to pass off things that are necessarily incorrect. So great question, Joe. Any other questions?
I'd just like to make one point, though. Kelly McGillis in Top Gun, she was actually modeled after Christine Fox, who works at the Pentagon still.
Oh.
Most recently was the acting Secretary of Defense. So it's an amazing story. She was that person who the movie was created after and came all the way up through the chain of command. And during the transition last year, held the second position in the SecDef's office. So
Wow, did not know that.
great stuff.
All right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much. Again, I've got business cards here from the University of Virginia. We do corporate education, and we also help people complete, bachelor's degrees, or they want some graduate work. We can help with that as well. So if you want to talk about any of those things, I'll be happy to discuss that further. Okay, thank you very much.